It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm thrilled, in putting this together. Anytime I get to speak to a group and share my story and what I've learned, it's always an adventure for me. And this one's been one of the greatest adventures I've been on in quite a while because of the uniqueness of you guys. Typically I'm speaking to athletes or at year-end banquets, and I find myself working with business people, but I've never had the opportunity to work with people who have accomplished the things that you guys have accomplished. So thank you so much for having me. We're going to have a great event. I'm going to take you on a journey. As we go on this journey of, the presentation, I called it "It's Lonely at the Top," and I think it's really important that when different things that I'm talking about strike you, they bring up something for you. What I really want you to do is think about the different times in your life. This is an emotional journey. I love to do this and help people realize what they've accomplished, some of the things that they've had to go through. And when I started telling my story, it was very difficult because there was a lot of shame, there was a lot of guilt, there was a lot of frustration, anger, disappointment with it. And the older I got and the more I reflected and the more I started to share my story, I started to realize all the things that I've been able to accomplish. And, the unfortunate part when we're striving for the top is that we tend to lose our way a little bit. We tend to forget that this was the journey that we chose. And in my story today, I'm really excited to take you guys on this journey with me. So I hope that you're relaxed. I hope that you have your coffee or tea. If you have a note, pen, and paper, please make sure you're making notes. And as we go, if something triggers you or you have a question at that moment in time, please put it in the chat and we'll leave some time at the end so that we can answer any questions that you may have as we go along. How we can push ourselves. It's such a driver. And I think, a lot of people who struggle in their lives really are always looking for that sense of purpose, always looking for that thing to make them feel whole. And I was very fortunate at a young age to be able to find that. And, it was so rewarding for me because as I was growing up, I became better at my skill because that's what I wanted to do. And it was such an enjoyable time for me. I was always with my friends and I was with my dad and I was with my mom and we were, enjoying all these things. And I think that's what really starts us on the path when we find our purpose is it gives us this whole new life. The glasses that we've had on, all of a sudden it's a completely different lens. And, having purpose in our lives is such a great thing to have. And, during this time of COVID and everything that's going on in the world, a lot of people have lost their purpose. And, we hear a lot, especially in the last 18 months is, what's the point? And, it's an awful feeling when we get to that part of our lives. And I think we all have different times where we experience that, but it's so important that we remind ourselves that the purpose is absolutely necessary for us to get where we want to go and to accomplish the things that we want. Is when you really found that purpose in your life to do what you're doing now, to be able to be such an influence and impactful within the community and supporting all the people that you do by holding people accountable, making sure that the laws are abided to, helping and supporting people on your journey. Very interesting. And I think that's the uniqueness that I've really found in doing the work that I do and asking these everybody that I work with, whether it's CEOs or young kids or older business people, how old were you when you really started to find that purpose? And it's different for all of us. Some people find it later in life. I find, people who are accomplished and reach that top absolutely have found it. And it's so nice to see that there's all these different numbers on there when you start to really find yourself and what you want to do with the rest of your life or a chunk of your life. Because, my purpose as a young person was to become an NHL hockey player. And that was a chunk of my life. It wasn't my entire life. It was something that I found that I wanted to do then. And it was an experience that I had to go through again when I retired at the age of 30, was to try and re-find a new purpose. And, transition is always a difficult thing for people, but it's important that we're understanding that purpose is really what allows us to have that drive, that motivation. Why am I getting out of bed in the morning? Why am I doing all this work? It's so that we can live that purpose that we found that makes us feel good. Whether it was bringing it into the home and taking my frustrations out on everybody around me, whether it was abandoning my friends that had made me feel so good, and I was such a part of their lives, and they were such a part of mine, and really removing myself from them because I was so solely focused on trying to get there and missing out on a lot of things. And I think that was the hardest part in reflection, of my journey, was so many different things that had caused me that regret, that pain, that self-doubt, that shame, and that guilt. And I think that's why I ended up in that place when I did finally get to that top. So a question for you guys. Yeah. Has your ego ever gotten in the way and caused pain? I love asking this question because, what I've learned in doing what I do now, in helping people reach peak performance, to become mentally well, understand what it means to be mentally healthy, is the ego is a big contributor to a lot of the suffering that we put ourselves through. We think that this is the right thing to do, and in the moment we're listening to that, but we're not really in tune with our intuition. The thing I found on my journey was whenever I went against my intuition, bad things usually happen. And that was my ego at work saying, no, you don't let that person, you don't tell that person, you don't do these things. The way I like to attribute it to is the little, cartoon of the little angel and little devil. And every time I listened to that devil, there was bad things to follow. And, on my life's journey, I've really found that when I listen to the angel and my gut and my intuition, it's never steering me wrong. And I think that's where a lot of people can really struggle on their journey to the top, is the ego gets too involved and can cause a lot more pain than it does promise.